Hey everyone, Boardgame Brody here with Meeple Mountain. I have Take 5, a classic since 1994, and Take a Number, both in the same box. It's a fresh take on Take 5 by Amigo Games. So yes, this game is actually 2 games in one box. Let's start with Take 5, also called Six Nimmt, as it was first designed in 1994 in Germany by Wolfgang Kramer. Six Nimmt translates to 6 takes, as in the player who takes the 6th card takes the row. This brings me back to when I chatted with Jeff at PAX Unplugged about this game and how Amigo brings their games here to the US.
Hi, I'm Jeff from Amigo, and I'm here to tell you about a few of our games today. For those of you who don't know, Amigo is a German company that's been around for about 40 years. It's one of the top game companies in Germany. We launched here in the US a couple of years ago, so we're still getting caught up to them, but with your help, I think we can get there. I had the pleasure of going through Amigo's archive of more than 1,000 games and picking out the 30 games that I thought were right for the North American market. And I used 3 basic criteria that apply to most of our games. The first one is they have 5 rules or less. The second one is they have European quality. That's in terms of both the components, but also the gameplay. And number 3, with 2 exceptions in our line, everything sells for $20 and under. So it's a very reasonably priced product line for really good European games.
The game, when brought to the US, was changed to Take 5 because the player will be taking 5 cards and the 6th one is left to start the new row. This might not mean much until I explain the game, but I thought it was interesting how the name changed, yet the 2 names both explain the game just in different viewpoints. Tomato, tomato. Anyways, Take 5 is a card game that takes about 20 minutes to play and can play with 2 to 10 players. Players are trying to score the least amount of penalty points during the game, and each card you collect will have at least 1 penalty point on it, if not more. Let's set up the game. After shuffling all the cards, each player is dealt 10. Players will take all their cards up secretly without others seeing them, and they will organize them in their hands. 4 cards are then dealt out to begin the 4 different rows. Each card has 2 main parts: the number shown in the middle, and the penalty points shown by how many bullheads are present. In each round, players will be simultaneously selecting 1 card from their hand to play in one of the rows, knowing that the rows might change before they can place their card. Once everyone has placed out a card face down, everyone flips their card over, showing its number. The player who played the lowest number begins by adding their card to one of the 4 rows. To place a card in a row, it will need to be a higher number than the previous card, as the cards will go in ascending order as they are placed out. And you have to place your card in a row with the previous card having the least difference from your current card, which means that you can't play a card in a row skipping a bunch of numbers, when in fact you can actually play the same card in another row with only skipping a couple numbers. Players will take turns placing their cards, starting with the player with the lowest number to the highest. After all players have gone, the round is over and the players will take another card from their hand to place face down in front of them. And again, from the lowest number to the highest, players will place out their cards in one of the rows. This will happen for 10 rounds, as players will place one of their cards for each round, totaling 10. Now, whenever during a player's turn they choose a card that has a lower number than any of the cards in any of the rows, they must take all the cards in a row of their choice. They probably want to choose a row that has the least amount of penalty points. These cards will be placed face down in a pile in front of them, starting what we call their bull pile. This player will then place the card that they revealed, that low number card there, as a start to the same row as the cards that they just took. Another way that you can gain points is whenever a row is full, when it has 5 cards in it, if a player plays a card that would become the 6th card in that row, then they have to pick up the 5 cards in the row and add them to their bull pile, also replacing that row with their revealed card to start a new row. Again, you don't want bulls, as they are penalty points against you, so try not to get stuck with a low card, lower than the rightmost cards in all the rows, and try to plan so that you don't have to play the 6th card in a row. Try to make someone else do that. Players will strategically pick cards from their hand to play, avoiding the most bowls and trying to change the rows as much as possible to trip up other players and make them have to take more cards than you. After 10 rounds, players count up their bowls in their bowl pile, the cards are shuffled and dealt out again, and players will play another 10 rounds. Players will play this until a player collects 66 or more penalty points, and at that point the winner is the player with the least amount of bowls. The game is fast, easy to learn and play, and simply requires the player to choose one of the 10 cards that best matches the cards out on the table at that moment. Players of all experience levels would enjoy this game as it's not too complex for new gamers, yet it still keeps a level of strategy that some players might see more than others. What Take 5 does best is it plays in a short amount of time and it accommodates a wide range of players. This can be a great filler game to have for any occasion, and it won't take up too much room on your shelf. Take a Number is similar to Take 5, but it puts a little spin on things. Setup is a tad bit different. Players will get 8 cards each to start, and there are 3 rows each, with a card depicting the number of cards allowed in that row. Again, similar to Take 5, whenever you add past that row, for example, whenever you add a 3rd card on this top row, then you will need to take the 2 cards, and you will start the new row with your revealed card. Essentially, the rows are shortened up in this version. Players also have a number line in front of them. When cards are taken from the row because either the player's card was too low for any of the rows, or if it falls outside the limit of how many cards that row can have, those cards are handled differently in Take a Number. You will choose one of the cards that you had to pick up and place it on your own personal number line indicated by a card that each player has in front of them with a number sign and an arrow. The remaining cards will then go back into the player's hand. Now this is different from Take 5 because in Take 5 you added all your cards to your bowl pile, but here you're placing one on your number line and the others back in your hand. As players keep playing the game, players will end up having to add more and more cards to their own number row until eventually they take a card that can't fit itself into their own number row line because those cards that they had to pick up are lower than their rightmost card of their personal number row. When this happens, the player takes all the cards in their number row and they place them face down in a number pile now to the left of their row. And then the player proceeds by taking one of the cards that they had to take and putting one of them in the number row and the remaining in their hand. Players will not want to take cards into their hand or in their number pile, as they will be worth penalty points at the end of the game. And the number pile is being the worst place that you want cards. The game ends when a player plays their last card from their hand without collecting any additional cards into their hand, and that round finishes when all players play in the card that they revealed and the players add up their score. The score is added up by players counting all the bullheads that they have on the cards in their hand. They are all worth 1 penalty point. And then all the bullheads in that player's number pile is worth 2 penalty points each. Each player's number row is safe and they do not add any penalty points from the cards that they have in that row. Players will play the game again, so 2 times total, and whoever has the least amount of penalty points is the winner. This variant of Take 5 adds some interesting additions to the game. With less rows and less cards to place in those rows, your strategy as to what cards that you can or can't play changes. You don't want to get stuck taking cards, so in this version you almost get stuck more often. The personal number row is kind of like a saving grace to you, as they won't count as penalty points until you mess it up. So you can strategically take a specific row with a lower card in it on your turn instead of being thrown at a random row with higher numbered cards. If you build your number line efficiently, then maybe you won't need to score those double points on the cards in your number pile, or hopefully not as many. But one mistake with a card not fitting in that line, then out they go all into the number pile. It's more important in this game to control what cards you take from the rows rather than getting stuck with the ones that you don't want. Also, the choice of what card you should play is more important, as it's easier and more strategic to try to stick other players with ending a row or taking cards, and some of those cards that you take from the rows will end up back in your hand. Do you try to get rid of them because they have a lot of bullheads on them, scoring you points if it ends in your hand at the end of the game? Or do you play so that you get rid of the higher number cards so that you can play your cards easier? Take a Number is a great, fresh take on Take 5, and might be enjoyed by players who like a little more advanced variant to the game, tightening things up, but also being able to control a little more as well. 2 games in a box? What more can you ask for? Gather your friends and family together, trying not to take 5, nor 2, or 3, or 4, in Take 5 and Take a Number by Amigo Games. Again, this is Boardgame Brody. I hope you enjoyed this video. Stick around and check out some other board game reviews to see what you might want to get to the table.